How's it going, people? Quick one. One of those quick ones, I hope. But it's basically having a bit more of a frame of mind when it comes to left and right media. What we more so explaining the momentum that we're shifting through. If you've read Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland, he does talk about this aspect of social pendulum and various techniques not to fall prey to the social pendulum because we've seen how that fucks up with people in history. One good example is you guys remember, well, you can't, and even I can't remember because I wasn't there, but looking at documentaries and various files as well as talking about to the people at that were there at that time, talking to the people at that time. Well, you never know, quantum physics, but let's not get into that. Well, you kind of notice a very right, I call it the extreme right momentum, meaning all based on religion, very strict rule sets when it came to religion. And how that kind of fucked around with the media was around the big boom of the 60s up to 70s, the whole hippie movement happened. Various expansion happened in consciousness. People started getting into meditation, or more people started getting into meditation, understanding that aspect of consciousness, splitting from society, because eventually that kind of strict aspect of rule sets was kind of fucked up. You can really walk on anyone's eggshell. Because, if you weren't following this exactly how the book says, fuck you, you're going to hell and you're an asshole. And this aspect of, how do you say, social lambasting based on a specific type of rule set. And what often happened, especially within media, is if you were not following a specific narrative, if you were not praising God in your speeches and all of that, and if you weren't, actively into that kind of conversation, you would kind of get censored or lambasted or barely looked at. Similar to various new thought authors back in the 1800s up to early 1900s. Various amazing writer. When you look at the work of Florence Scovel Shinn and various other works like Neville Goddard's work, you're like, whoa, what the fuck? This shit is talking about current, actual current, let's say, things that are currently being proven scientifically, okay? But back then, because they were not necessarily following the narrative, they were shooed and poo-pooed away. Various other things like what happened with Osho. If some of you saw, what was it, Wild Wild Country? I haven't really seen it. I've heard about it. I've seen some of the conflicts that happen about it. But again, it's the media to a certain degree having brought up an image of that movement, especially after what happened with Charles Manson. And a lot of people kind of, that automatic association, just kind of, oh shit, they look the same, they're hippies, so they could be killers, so let's watch out for that. Oh, this is weird, this is foreign, this is ungodly, so let's watch out for that. There was a massive campaign when it came to that. You will even notice in certain media, like especially sitcoms or even half and half when it comes to the documentaries, you can sort of smell the biasness in certain documentaries about that or about certain peoples from that movement, So it is easy to kind of spot what happened then when you understand that it was mostly a religious rite. I mean, again, like in Quebec, better pop those baby, man. The clergy is asking for it. And there was a high mentality when it came to that. Media was kind of orienting a bit more towards that. So most things were kind of lambasted. Various other leftist ideas were kind of lambasted, or perceived leftist idea. Remember, they were big into that Cold War. If you were even close to talking like a communist, you'd be gone, So it was, you can notice, and especially if you look at some of the documentaries around that time or some of the talks about that time, kind of funny because you look at some of the Woodstock documentaries and some of the people around town were it was a mixed bag, but some of them were like, oh my God, what's going on, Already from this aspect of, fear of the other, division, divisiveness, okay? So Now, you look at that and you start noticing how, right now, in this extreme left, which is balancing out, but in this current phase of extreme left, you can see the exact same mediatic tactics being done. Even worse, it is even reinforced when it comes to social media. Your post could be gone. You could get reported. You could get your account taken down. It is gone. It's like, oh, you're talking something outside of that specific narrative. Lambast, get the fuck out. It is very, very, it is way too similar. I'm not saying that in a bad way. Again, everything isn't at the same time. So, yes, you can perceive it in a very negative way, because it's like you guys haven't learned from the other swing, and as soon as you got to that extreme, that just kept continuing. The tactics came even worse. But at the same time, it's a good thing because you're able to spot it with much more ease and not allow yourself to be swung by those pendulums. Because you then get to a point where you understand and you consciously see how the mass will swing from one side to another. Hell, I remember around time of 9/11, I was still in high school, big campaign against Arab. It's like, you got to watch out for them bin Ladens. It's said such in a crude way, okay? But it happened, Lots of movies made the evil Arab as a bad guy. Video games just bursted that shit, man. And then, as we start swinging the other way a bit more, because that was around the end of that right movement, we didn't even have that many televangelists. Remember, that was a big thing back then. So the consciousness was being groomed into that extreme right. Well, then, as the swing started happening, you could start seeing documentaries or even interviews in the Quebec media. I was just, I started talking to my Arab neighbors and they're good people. It's just, I find it the funniest thing where it's like, I just started talking to my neighbors and they're great people. Okay, you can't do, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. There was a social programming that happened, and when it swung the other way, it, got caught to the other way. And it's not saying that it's a bad thing or that they're dumbasses for that. No, sorry. That was an old reaction. I'm cleaning that shit up. Seriously. History has learning history through school kind of makes you look at certain things and go, oh, really? Because the teacher kind of went that way. So you never really want to call whoever's stuck in a momentum a dumbass, because as you can see, it is perpetually groomed with a repetition of thought and idea that goes along with that swing of pendulum, extreme right, extreme left, and back to the middle, affecting how people perceive others, how they perceive themselves and perceive reality. So when you get that and you kind of see those momentum shift, but you also see the extreme of the other momentum after the swing. So we're talking about people going radically crazy with social justice. Spoke about the assumption of weakness, and when it comes to minorities, whenever you bring up that sword and shield and you're assuming that the other person is weak, the energy that's being sent out, even the psychological effect of it does, negative impacts. Spoken about a couple of other videos. And that whole talk of cultural appropriation, which is blows the fucking mind, because when you understand that evolution was always the sharing of various methods, various techniques, various ethnicities, and various practices to then change, evolve, create something new, and have the cycle happen all over the place, that terminology and that whole mental thinking was kind of like, whoa, wait, what the fuck is going on? And then we saw, again, the similar aspect of walking on eggshells, but except for a whole new perimeter of ideas, of thoughts, and principle made, as well as those things being not lambasted, but being groomed in colleges. Because remember, there was a time, well, you won't remember, but you can ask your parents, there was a time where school was fucking handled by nuns and a ruler. So you start seeing that swing, that momentum that happened in society from time to time, or from various years to other years, and you can kind of perceive both the positive and the negative of it. Meaning, as a swing happens, there are more openness to different things, different theories, different understandings, okay? Yet, once that swing goes to an extreme and makes that opening a strict rule set, you just fucked with evolution. Because evolution is, as Bruce Lee said, like water. You're continuously adapting, growing, and evolving. It's not staying at a strict point or a strict swing of the pendulum. It's always kind of understanding the non-duality of it. It's not one or the other. It's understanding the factors and nuances of both that can make a whole. And that kind of brings back to original state. You know, when you came in on this planet, you had none of these pendulums. You just got brought into them because of your environment and what was being brought out at the news around that time. Hell, I still remember as a kid, my joke phrase, because my dad was continuously looking at the news and he was talking about communists. As earlier on, I didn't fucking know what communism was or communists were. It was around the time of not even Cold War, Iraq War, or something like that. But I just kind of said communism as a joke, or communist as a joke. Hell, even during the time of 9/11, before the whole media campaign happened, we had a classmate called Mohammed, and he was from Egypt, and we all started joking about Al-Qaeda, making stupid little chants about it, because we didn't get swung by the mediatic pendulum. You know, that was around the end of high school, and we still didn't give a fuck about that, whatever was being broadcasted out loud. We did try to have a protest. An idea of a protest, which ended quickly until when our fucking pretzel just kind of went, get it. But those were good times. It wasn't taking a stance on one end or another. It was just kind of just playing around and not getting swung by. And that's the key to non-duality, in a sense, and to not letting yourself swept, letting your thoughts, your mental state, your mindset, you know, getting swept by one swing or another, and then because of another swing, you think you're all wrong because the rules are something else, and you got to follow this. It's like, no. When you see that humanity has been swinging back and forth, never really taking conscious awareness of that, and when you also see that media has affected that, because they don't know what they don't know, they can't perceive the repercussions of their actions because it is not what they've studied. They were never told about that. But at the same time, you can also just let go of all that shit and just have fun being yourself and not infringing on others the way you wouldn't want others to infringe upon you. It gets really basic because eventually heart reaction, always saying that. It is the heart reaction. Whether you insult yourself or someone else, whether you think lack of yourself or someone else, it's always the same feeling. We're all one. It's the same consciousness. You know, different parts of consciousness or different, let's say, in variations of consciousness. You know, we come in different mind and body, but it's the same soul. It's the same oversoul. It's the same consciousness. So when you kind of get that and you kind of see your reactions in media to what is being said, that leads you into an aspect of thinking of division and thinking about lack, then you're able to kind of go, nope, you let it go. You kind of lend a bit of an ear, but you're not emotionally grasped or wrapped in it, because then you're going to get swang right left depending on what's being broadcast more, and there's no balance. Whether you check one or the other only, there's no balance. It's always about this continuous momentum of non-duality. And again, not acting on another the way you wouldn't want another to act on you is the best key. You know, same goes with thought, because it's all the same. It's all the same consciousness. You Whatever you say about someone else comes from your mind. Even if you've gathered it from the collective, it is still your hard drive, and it is still you selecting to take trash, because the collective in general takes trash and hasn't gotten to a point. It's getting there. It's getting there rapidly too, which is kind of surprising. Really cool too. But even if the collective keeps an aspect of trash in their mind, I like to call it trash because it gives you a bit more of an incentive to clean up whatever's in the hard drive. You don't necessarily want to. It's like saying, okay, because all those people downloaded a specific mindset and that mindset has viruses, it doesn't mean that you need to keep the virus.